Well, now, as we heard earlier in the day, the Prime Minister flew to the Tamil-dominated north of Sri Lanka to see and to hear for himself the allegations of human rights abuses that followed the ending of the civil war in 2009. And I asked him whether he thinks his presence at the summit here can really influence President Rajapaksa.
Well, my appeal to him is that, as Churchill said, in victory, magnanimity. That's, you should be generous. You should try to bring the country together. And there's a tremendous opportunity to do just that, because the fighting is over, the war is finished. But people, like the many in this basically refugee camp, want to go to their homes. And that's what's needed, some generosity in terms of bringing this country back together again.
While you were in with the Chief Minister, there was quite a large demonstration of grieving women. Many were mothers who'd lost children, sons who disappeared. They'd surrendered to the army at the end of the war and just not been heard of again. There is unresolved material here. There are allegations of war crimes. And asking the President simply to set up some kind of inquiry surely is not going to get anywhere.
No, I'm very clear that we need a proper independent inquiry into what happened, particularly at the end of the war, where Channel 4, through that excellent documentary, have shown some truly chilling and appalling scenes. And my view is that if there isn't an independent inquiry soon, there ought to be an independent international inquiry. We do need to get to the bottom of what has happened, but we also need to solve the problems of Sri Lanka today, one of which is internally displaced people, refugees in camps like this, who really should be allowed to go home.
But the very fact that you've appeared on a stage today with all the Commonwealth leaders, or as many have come, at least 50, in some way turns the page. Suddenly their centre stage is the President of Sri Lanka, against whom these war crimes allegations are being made. And he's moving on. He's moving on. He's not going anywhere in terms of any kind of investigation.
Well, I don't think it does turn the page. Look, I had the choice of whether to come to the Commonwealth heads of government or not. I decided it was right to come because Britain plays a leading role in the Commonwealth, and if we're not there, the arguments we make about people paying their taxes properly, tackling poverty properly, making sure we have proper human rights within the Commonwealth, those arguments wouldn't be properly made. But while I'm here, I'm determined to shine a light properly on what's happening in Sri Lanka, both in terms of what happened at the end of the war, but also the problems today with, as you say, the disappeared, the problems of press freedom, the lack of free speech, the lack of rights. We should shine a light on these things, but we should do it in a way that says we don't give up hope on this country. Actually, this country and its president still have a chance. Now they've won this war to demonstrate some generosity and have some rights.
You may have shone a light, but all around us there's military intelligence. There are people in plain clothes and the rest of it. People who've spoken to you, people who've spoken to us, are marked people. They're people who will be seen afterwards. Navi Pillay, who you spoke to last night from the UN, she detailed the amount of intimidation there is when she's been here.
Well, I thought long and hard before coming here, and of course there were people who said, well, people wouldn't want to talk. And in fact, they have wanted to talk. They wanted to tell their story. And frankly, being the first Prime Minister or head of state or government from anywhere to come here since 1948, it's been possible to bring journalists like you who care deeply about this matter so we can shine a light on these things, ask these questions, draw attention of the world to what's happening in Sri Lanka, and try to make sure the right things are done.
If there isn't that independent inquiry, you will take action. You will take it to the United Nations.
Yes,
what will you do?
What we've said is that if they don't come up with a credible independent inquiry, we will lend our support to a full international independent inquiry. That's what we've said, and that's what we'll do.
You know, there have been 10 presidential commissions in the last 20 years. Hardly any of the reports have been published, and certainly no action has ever been taken thereafter.
Part of the problem is far too many of the inquiries here in Sri Lanka have been carried out by the military. Now, that's not a proper inquiry. But let's just end on this point, John. Look, there was a war that went on for a very long time in this country. Appalling acts were committed by the Tamil Tigers as well. We have to be very clear about that. What we're talking about now is the acts when that war ended and the need for proper civil and political rights today. But to end on an optimistic note, actually, it is a country that can succeed. It is a country now that is at some level of peace. And so, therefore, if they choose to share out their future together, then actually they can be a success.
Prime Minister, thank you for talking to us.
Thank you.